zili in the workplace kuti no adzipange relate ndi zimene akupfunzira kuti iwo adzakhale anthu ogwira ntchito abwino othandizira dziko la Malawi. Konseko ndayendako ndakhala ndikukamba zimenezozo ku mwachitsanzo ku CU ndi mayang'ana za mmene dziko lino ndondomeko imene akhala igwiritsa ntchito pa chitukuko. So I analyzed development policies from Malawi from 1964 and tried to assess whether those worked or not and the challenge that they had and challenging the students kuti mwina iwo angazazione mwantundu wanje angadzatani to get things better. Mainly kumubasi the focus was on the industrialization of the country. Kuti kodi dziko lathuli why does it remain rudimentary? Tikagwisabe ntchito khasu tinakalima foja chimanga sugar nditi. Why are we not industrializing after many years of existence of Mubas, where you have the field of engineering, kumene field of mining, kumene apanga focus on tourism. So I was challenging them kuti zimene kuphunzira za mining zija, business administration, za engineering, the all other courses there, they are meant to help this country industrialize, and yet the country remain unindustrialized. So that's what I was saying. Kuti ife mwina amene nadutsa maskulu amene mnthawi imeneyo sitinathandize kwambiri dziko lino kuti dziko lino lipange industrialized, and that was the challenge that I left with Mubasi. Here ndabwera ndi topic ya the role of the youth in economic development. Kathy, you know very well that this country is a youthful nation. 75% of Malawians are below the age of 35. And therefore, these are the people that it decides who wins in an elections. They are the people that decide because in terms of democracy, majority rules. And if the youth are in majority, every youth, either by voter apathy, they let the minority vote whoever they want to bring in, or if they so choose to vote in their large numbers, a government of their choice, that government is going to win because they are the majority in this nation. And therefore, I'm bringing in an issue of the role of the youth in our development. And I'll also be pushing to say, look, don't complain with whatever you're seeing, because you are the cause of what we're seeing, because any single government in here is as a result of the youth's decision whether to vote or not. And if they vote, that they've decided that we shall be ruled by that government. So they should not complain. But equally true, I'll be bringing in the serious challenges the youth face in this country for them to realize their potential. Because people argue about the youth badge as a dividend. I would argue to the contrary, that the youth badge in Malawi does not mean a dividend. Actually, it's a burden. Because what it has done, we have a very, very small population that is working, whereas you have the majority that are dependents. So because of that mismatch, there's a youth dividend in Malawi, rather the opposite.
Zikomo kwambiri Kabambe, ndakudulani chifukwa taona kuti mkati mu anthu akonzeka akukudikirani kuti mwayankhule zabwino zonse. Ndithu amene Dalitso Kabambe kufotokoza zomwe ophunzira pa sukulu ino ya St John the Baptist University akuyenera kuyembekeza kumva kuchoka kwa iwo akamayankhula mu public lecture ya lero pano kuno ku Mangochi. Iwo amafotokozerapo ndithu kuti akuona kuti achinyamata ndamene ali ndi mphamvu kwambiri kusankha mtsogoleri, ndamene ali ndi mphamvu zoyika munthu kuti akhale mtsogoleri wa dziko lino. Atiwo nchifukwa chake achita target ndithu kuti adzikhala kulankhula ndi achinyamata kudzera ndithu ma public lectures amene akonza kuti aziyenda m'masukulu. Iwo apita kale ku Catholic University, anapita ku Nzuni, anapita ku Mubasi, timve akatsiriza paticheze nawo maka pa nkhani zinaso zochuluka zokhudza ndali komanso kuti kodi pali pali chiyembekezo kuti akhalenso akupita kutchanko kukachita monga momwe akuchitiramu. Koma bwanji pano mosataya nthawi taona Kabambe afika mchipinda chimenechi ndipo ophunzira onse akhala m'malo mwawo. Bwanji tipereke mkatimu kuti zonse zomwe tabwerera pano aziyambike titsatire limodzi.
You are doing quite okay this afternoon. A beautiful day, a sunny day, a day to learn a few things in regards to economics, so to say, or economic development. Before we start everything, permit me to recognize our guest speaker today, Dr. Dalitso Kabambe, who is the former Governor of Reserve Bank of Malawi. In our midst, we also have Dr. Wogomatani Malunga, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of DMI St. John the Baptist University, who is also the principal for Mangochi campus. We are also honored to have Reverend Father Laza, who is the campus manager with us, the president of the student organization body here at DMI, Mangochi, Mr. Clement Lisimba, HODs, deans, lecturers, students, the press, and all my dear beloved students. Feel welcomed. Before we have our program rolling, let me ask a volunteer to open with a word of prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day you have given us. And oh God, we dedicate this program unto your hands, that I will be learning and be transformed and be led to the wisdom and knowledge that will change us. Be with us and end with us. In the name of Jesus, we pray.
All right. It is for that reason that today we are in here to have a public lecture to be delivered by our very own Dr. Kabambe, and it is looking at us as youth of Malawi. Initially, he is here to talk about transforming mindset change, transforming mindsets, empowering Malawian youth for economic development. Now, who are the youths? It is we in here. So his mission is to empower us towards economic development, and let's be attentive so that we listen to what he has for us. Going forward, permit me to call upon the Deputy Vice Chancellor of DMI St. John the Baptist University, Dr. Benedicto Wogomatani Malunga, for an opening remark. Doctor, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I can't hear you. Good afternoon, everyone. I thought you'd be excited. We're at a feast of ideas, and what more would you want other than stimulation of your minds through a cross-fertilization of ideas? Our guest of honor, Dr. Dalitso Kabambe, and your entourage. Our president of the Students' Union, who has been responsible with his cabinet for the invitation of our guests of honor. Our vice principals, our heads of department, and the entire DMI fraternity. The joy, honor, and privilege are mine this afternoon. Public lecture. As you will agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time ever that's better. As you will agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time ever within our environs that we have hosted a guest as illustrious as Dr. Kabambe. And I would like, therefore, to assure Dr. Kabambe that the DMI fraternity is not only excited, but also full of anticipation as it looks forward to its interaction with you at a very high intellectual frequency for which you are renowned. I happen to be privileged in the sense that well before you came here, you and I have had the opportunity in the past of meeting. Previously as Director of Budget at the Ministry of Finance, when you used to sit on my UNIMA Council and I as your Secretary. Later, in the Ministry of Health, when we again interacted so much as I represented KCN then at a number of meetings. As if that was not enough, even when you went to Foreign Affairs, I had the opportunity also to follow your professional exploits. The icing on the cake was actually your emergence at the Reserve Bank, where your tremendous impact cannot pass wool or cotton without a fanfare. It is that kind of a man, ladies and gentlemen, whom we have among us to kickstart a new culture in DMI, a culture of public lectures. We couldn't have settled for a better guest than Dr. Kabambe to kickstart these public lectures. They will become part of our life at DMI because we do believe that on top of you learning from your lecture rooms, there is also need for you to be exposed to topical issues that shape the minds of citizens so that they can contribute positively to their country with their intellectual man or woman power. Public lectures are the heartbeat of any progressive university, and that's the more reason they should be promoted, because they bring closer to the student community eminent professionals, eminent scholars that can stimulate their minds in ways unimaginable. Furthermore, such lectures open up avenues for intellectual rigor hitherto unobtainable in the classroom. And I'm delighted that we have filled up this hall, a clear indication that we are all curious to drink from the source of economic knowledge as it flows closer to Lake Malombe, as if in competition. I would therefore, by way of welcoming this illustrious son of Malawi, ask all of you to put your hands together for Dr. Kabambe, so that he should know that at DMI, he shall not walk alone, although he may not be a Liverpool fan. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen.
That was our DVC, Dr. Benedicto Wogomatani Malunga, welcoming our guest speaker today, Dr. Kabambe. I'm sure most of you have a question at the back of your mind to say, who is Dr. Kabambe? Be rest assured, the answer is here. Let's get to know who Dr. Kabambe is. Dr. Kabambe academically got his first degree, a bachelor's for that matter, in agricultural economics from University of Malawi, UNIMA. That was in 1998. In 2001, Dr. Dalitso Kabambe got his master's in developmental economics from Imperial College in London. He further did his PhD in developmental economics in the year 2008. And that's why we have that doctor at the beginning. He is not a mere individual, but a scholar himself. Professionally, Dr. Kabambe served as the budget director from the year 2010 to 2013. From 2013 to 2015, he served as the director of planning and policy. Then from 2015 to 2017, he served as the principal secretary for foreign affairs and international cooperation. From 2017 to 2020, he served as the governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi. Dr. Kabambe served as the governor of the Reserve Bank in Malawi, demonstrating exceptional leadership and strategic acumen during his tenure. Amidst economic challenges, Dr. Kabambe spearheaded significant achievements that transformed the country's financial landscape. Under his stewardship, the Malawian kwacha maintained stability against the dollar, crucial for economic predictability. He also boosted foreign exchange reserves from a scanty $389 million US to a robust $1.4 billion US. ensuring over 6 months of import cover. Dr. Kabambe's decisive action saw a remarkable reduction in the policy rate from a daunting 24% to a more manageable 13.5% within just 2 years. Moreover, his efforts led to a drastic reduction in non-performing loans for banks, that is, plummeting from 19% to a mere 4% within the same time frame. By driving private sector lending growth from negative figures to a commendable 19% across various financial institutions, Dr. Kabambe stimulated economic activities and investment in the country. Reserve Bank of Malawi witnessed a remarkable financial turnaround under his leadership. From a projected loss of 4 billion kwacha in 2017, the institutions saw profits soar to surplus of 21 billion kwacha by year-end and a groundbreaking record profit of 57 billion kwacha in 2019. These achievements sets unprecedented benchmark for the institution. Furthermore, Dr. Kabambe played a pivotal role in boosting the country's remittance substantially, strengthening the inflow from $36 million in 2017 to an impressive $250 million in 2019. Through successful implementation of the Extended Credit Facility program in collaboration with IMF, Malawi solidified its economic foundation and gained international credibility. Notably, Dr. Dalitso Kabambe's initiatives had a positive ripple effect on the Malawi Stock Exchange, enhancing its performance across all key indicators. His visionary leadership and unwavering commitment to economic stability and growth have left an indelible mark on Malawi's financial landscape. This sets a high standard for future governance. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kabambe.
Deputy Vice Chancellor for DMI, my brother, colleague, friend, Dr. Benedicto Kumatani Malunga. I guess he deserves a hand of applause. The Dean of Students, Bernard Gauti, the President of the Students' Union, Clement Lisimba, Campus Manager, Father Lazarus, all members of the academic staff here present at DMI, all members of the Students' Union and your executive, Mr. President, and all students of DMI, good afternoon. I am absolutely delighted, Doc and Deputy Vice Chancellor, that we could indeed come together, sit next to each other as we have done today. I'm honored that I could be given this space this afternoon that we can share a conversation with the academicians here at the DMI. I'm so excited because of the topic which I'm going to cover this afternoon. It's a unique topic, bearing in mind the other topics I've covered in other universities, but this one is close to my heart because it looks at the role of the youth in economic development, especially focusing on Malawi. And through you today, this afternoon, I want to speak to the Malawian youth. And I want you to listen to me very, very carefully, because I've come to a conclusion that we are who we are because of the Malawian youth. And therefore, I want us to have that candid and frank conversation about the role of the Malawian youth in our economic development. In terms of my area of coverage, I'll briefly talk about the introduction of the public lecture, look at the concept of demographic dividends, and I'll be asking a question whether Malawi has a demographic dividend. In other words, I'll be asking here a question: are the Malawian youth relevant, or we should forget about you? Or you haven't been relevant, or you haven't been helpful to this nation? That's what I'll be talking about vis-a-vis the demographic dividend concept. And therefore, I will then move on to the role that I think the youth of Malawi needs to play in our economic governance and economic dispensation. Move on to identify some of the challenges that you may likely come up with, or excuses that you may likely come up with. And then I would cite examples of Rwanda and Singapore where maybe you can apply lessons from to see how you move the country forward. And finally, I'll end with my parting shot in terms of the conclusion. Malawi is a youthful nation. Malawi is a young population. 75% of the country are 35 years and below, where the majority of you are, except me and the DVC. But the country as a whole, Sanje to Chitipa, 75% are 35 years and below. 50% are 20 years and below, meaning, based on NSO, we are 20 million Malawians. 15 million Malawians are below the age of 35. So those of us above 35 are only about 5 million. Meaning that this country, it is a country for the youth. This nation is about the youth. If we have a government today, that government was made up by the youth. Because the majority, in a democracy, the majority rules. So these 75% are the ones who decide who to put in power, which party to go in government, which party to be booted out of government, which president to be president, which president not to be president. It is the decision of this 75%. 35 years and below. And you decide either by voting or by voter apathy. When you decide not to vote, you allow the minority adults to vote for their candidate. If you decide to vote, your candidate wins because you are in majority. From the age of 20 to 35, there are almost 6 million Malawians who decide every election. Every election. That's how powerful a force the youth are. And I would wish to submit that based on the majority of rule principle in a democracy, the youth are the people that decides who becomes president and not. Which party goes into government and not. It is the youth. Either by voting or by not voting. Power of electing a president in Malawi, of having a party in government in Malawi, rests with the youth. And how you use it, it's what we see who runs the government. Hello? I'm saying, from an economic point of view, the youth would be very, very important for the development of our nation. And I will go into a discussion and a conversation around that. Then try to wangle my way how that role is being played and what suggestions I have for the youth of Malawi. Now, if I move on to this, concept, the demographic dividend, in the textbooks, they would say you have a demographic dividend when those aged between 15 and 64, the population of those between 16 and 54 is larger than those between 64 and above. That's a textbook definition of demographic dividend. The idea is that those 64 years and above, they are dependents. They are no longer working, they have retired. So they are in retirement. They are depending on social security programs and so forth, insurance schemes and so forth. So they are dependent. They are no longer contributing to the labor force. They are no longer working. They are dependent. So when you have those 64 and below who are working in large numbers, higher than those that are not working, that are not contributing to the GDP and so forth, at that point, you have a demographic dividend leaning towards the youth. We have seen in the world today, countries like France, especially in Europe, France and others, who are struggling because they have the age to 64 and above in large numbers versus to the pool of the young ones coming through into the workforce and working. And therefore their challenge is how do they bring in more youth so that they can work and contribute more to the development of the country to support those that are not working. In our case, and in my own interpretation, and for purposes of Malawi, I've twitched that concept in the textbooks to say when you have a situation where 25 years to 64 is greater than those 20 to 60, is greater than those less than 25 and above 64, then in the case of Malawi would claim, should that happen, then we have a demographic dividend. In my view, anyone below the age of 25 is dependent. Is that correct? Anyone below the age of 25 is still dependent. Because in the case of Malawi, if you are like me, at 13 years, you are going into your Form 1. At 17 years, you are going into your first year. So you are likely going to finish at around 20, 21, 22. Others may finish earlier, but I've put a mark of 24. To say 24, 25 below, you are still in school, you are still dependent on someone. So in your case, you are still dependent on someone. Just like anyone else who has retired above 64 is also dependent on someone. Therefore, I've twitched the formula to say we can only establish demographic dividends for the youth if the youth, those that are 25 to 64 who are actively contributing and are not depending on someone else, but they're actively contributing to the economic growth and development, if their proportion is higher than those between 1 and 24 years or 25 years and 64 and above, then you have a demographic dividend in that case. You get me? Have you gotten me? Yeah, so let's interrogate that and see in the case of Malawi, what do we have? Next slide, please. That's what we have for the case of Malawi. Now, it's an interesting scenario. Here it is. This is 1964 when we got independence. 30 years of independence to 1994, 30 years stretch. Malawian population doubled from 2 million Malawians to 4 million Malawians. 30 years, we doubled from 2 million to 4 million. Now look at this one. From 1994 to 2024, this year, we've turned another 30 years. Malawi's population has moved from 4 million to 20 million. You haven't heard me. From 1994 to 2024, 30 years, Malawi's population has increased from 4 million to 20 million. Whereas between 1964 and 1994, 30 years as well, we only doubled from 2 million to 4 million. What has happened here is that during this period of 30 years, our parents, including my parents and the DVC's parents, were bearing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 children. Because they were part of security, they knew that 1 or 2 may die along the way. Why? Because we had a high infant mortality rate, we had a high under 5 mortality rate, we had a high neonatal deaths, but also maternal mortality was very, very high. But equally too, during that time, from 1994 to 1994, HIV had just started and there were no therapies. So fatalities out of HIV were high. Fatalities out of malaria, we didn't know how to use mosquitoes and so forth, they were high. Fatalities out of TB and many other conditions during this era, they were high. So every home was making a decision that I should not only have 2 or 3 kids like today, but I should have 9 kids in case one dies. But also in those days, there were a lot of beliefs, cultural beliefs, that there are feet who can eat 1 or 2 of your children. So parents were factoring all those in. But even after doing all that, where fertility as measured by the number of kids that a mother would have, was as high as 6, 7, and so forth. And yet, our growth in the population was too slow and it dragged. But since 1994, our health system has improved drastically. Neonatal mortality rates have gone down drastically. Infant mortality have gone down. Under 5 mortality has gone down. Yes, prevalence of HIV fatalities have gone down. Tuberculosis fatalities have gone down. Malaria fatalities have gone down. And many other conditions today, there's more awareness. And our public health system is able to manage most of the conditions that led to death in those days. And as a result, what we have seen is that population boom. Because in terms of death rates have gone down, whereas the fertility rates have remained relatively higher. They have slowed down, yes, but because you have closed the other window, what I've seen is a surge in population. Hence the jump from 4 million to 20 million. Now look at this. Over the 3 decades, the 30-year period, we have seen population jumping from 4 to 20 million, meaning that 16 more Malawians have born during that time, from 1994 to 2024. That's why we are saying this population is a young population, because the majority of the people were born 1994 to date. Those of us who were born before 1994, myself and the DVC, we are rare to be seen around. And you can see how we are gathered here. The majority are the youth. And any other church service, you go in there, or you go to a political rally, you go anywhere where you can go in the marketplace, the majority are the youth. Malawi is a youthful nation, as it were. Now, we have done projection. When you look at the projection by NSO, when you look at those projections, when you look at those projections, by another 30-year period, by 2054, you can see how much the surge in population will be. Reason being, because we have 75% of the population below 35 years of age. This group, they are fertile. This group, majority are yet to bring forward their own offsprings. So when they bring their own offsprings, and when they exercise their fertility, what you are seeing is a further boom in the population. To the extent by 2054, we should be looking at 45 million Malawians existing. Imagine each one of us, of the ladies, would maintain a fertility rate of 2 to 3 children per lady. And that's what's going to happen. But with that, you can see how much the youthful population is. We have a very, very huge youthful population. The blue color that you are seeing are those below 25. Hello? The blue color are those below 25. And you can see those below 25 are still dependent. They still need to go to primary school, secondary school, and attain their university education. So they are still dependent. The yellow color are those between 25 and 64. That is the working class. That is the working class. The other color, is it the green? That we have there at the top, the small one, are the aged. So you can see the mismatch here. In terms of proportions, you can already see that the majority in Malawi are dependents. Those 25 years and below. That's the majority of people in Malawi. Actually, 50% are less than 20 years of age. When you go to 75%, it's 35 years and below. So the youth are the ones in large numbers who are dependent. So it means every other person who is working is looking at almost 9 individuals. 1 into 9. The 9 are dependents, whereas only 1 is working. Others are in the village, others are in schools and so forth and so forth. So looking at the demographic dividend for Malawi, if the demographic dividend concept says when the working group is larger than the dependent group, then you have demographic dividends. Then in our case, my conclusion from here is that we have a more dependent group than the one which is working. And therefore, Malawi does not have demographic dividends. Whilst it is a youthful nation, but the youth are in school. The youth are still dependent. They still need to be looked after by the very few that are in the working category. And therefore, we cannot talk about demographic dividend at that stage. I therefore challenge the notion, academically, challenge the notion that Malawi is in a demographic dividend, because the majority are those that are dependent compared to those that are independent and supporting the growth of the economy. Now, let me look at this stat to argue further my case. When you look at Malawi, it's an interesting scenario, because you have 70% of the population now that have no single certificate. 70%, 7 out of 10 Malawians have no single certificate. And you have 11% that at least have a primary school leaving certificate. Then you have another 9% that at least have a JC certificate. Then you have another 6.4% that have an MSE certificate, meaning that those of us who are here are part of that statistic of 6.4% of the population, at least that have a Malawi school certificate of education. And those of the DVC and others, the academic staff that have degrees, you have not yet qualified, so you don't have, you're not in that category. But those that have qualified and hold a degree, a master's degree, a PhD, like the DVC, are only 2.5% of the population. You can see where our challenge is. So when we talk of a demographic dividend in this situation, it's even terrible, because you have a population that do not own any certificate of education, as high as 70% of the population, which is a serious challenge. So when we look out there about the performance of our economy, we need to understand these facts, that this is the kind of demographic structure that we have in the economy, and as far as literacy levels as explained by the certificate that one holds, that we have. Now, when it comes now to the youth itself, my next slide, when it comes to the youth themselves, considering that the youth are in majority, to me, the number one issue to do with the youth is the issue of education and skills development. Because we have the current situation today where 70% hold no certificate at all, because we didn't do well in the past to have a population that is well educated. So the immediate challenge that Malawi has is to educate its children and its citizens. In any case, these are the majority of the people in the population. And the right investment that is needed in this nation is an investment towards our youth. And I want to plead and beg to governments, if we want to change our status quo, we need to begin now, so that tomorrow we have better citizens in this country. We can't only have 2% of the population having a tertiary education qualification. This is the reason why, when you ask around, I want to meet a heart specialist, you find that the country has 0 own heart specialist. When you say want to develop the mining sector, very, very few experts that are out there. When we had a problem of cancer, to look for oncologists, it was a problem. We had to go into a serious retraining program to have cancer specialists. And when you look at any other area of science, innovation and technology area and its expertise, we would not have the right people in place, because the majority would not even have a basic primary school leaving certificate. To me, if you ask me, any government, we must challenge it to bring forward sufficient resources directed towards its children, so that we can have a better nation tomorrow, full of scientists, full of economists, full of specialists of all kinds and manner of things and disciplines. That is, to me, the key priority. When you look at the education sector now, you move around the country. I'll be contesting in my constituency in the upcoming elections. I've gone to the primary schools where the kids are still learning under a tree. I've gone to places where kids are in grass-thatched classrooms and they're sitting on the floor. There are no materials whatsoever, learning materials. And we expect to have a better Malawi tomorrow. We cannot. Of course, we applaud His Excellency Dr. Bakiri Muluzi's government because they introduced free primary education. With that free primary education, when you look at statistics by the National Statistics Office, as much as 85 to 90% of the children who should be in the primary school, they are now in the primary school. Of course, the kinds of schools, some of them are the ones that I've talked about, that don't have the right teachers in place, the right resource materials in place, the right buildings in place. Those are the kinds of schools in various rural Malawi areas. When you come to secondary school, you find that at the primary school leaving certificate, so many students have done very, very well, but only a little have been selected to go to public schools. And for those that don't find the space, that go to private center schools, the fees out there, they are so exorbitant and too high, many parents cannot afford. But indeed, as much as half or more than that wrote those exams, you find that they've been thrown out of the bus. They have no education and they just ended up getting married or marry and move on with their lives. Or they are just pushed doing farming, something that they never wanted to do. But what do? They just go into farming as they are. So you have an education system that is failing its children as they move from primary to secondary school education. A lot of people are thrown out of the bus. Over 70% are thrown off the bus. And we do that every year and every year. We think it's okay. It's a tragedy for our nation. Then you move on to the university. You then see so many people have passed the Malawi School Certificate Examination exams. So many have passed. And they are worthy to be in a public university. They are worthy to be sent to go to university. They don't. You will find that all of them that have been thrown off the bus, only 2 to 3% have been selected. And very few find their own way into private universities, but the large contingent of them, they say they kiss goodbye to education. That's the end of their life. And when you go into public universities these days, during our days we are bribed to remain in schools. I've always said that. He knows very well, the DVC knows. They bribed us to be in school. They bribed us. When you go there, the hostels were very nice. New, actually, in our time. They were new. The beddings were very nice. You go the first day, you're like in a hotel. Food was very nice. And some of us had the audacity to say, I don't drink tea. I only drink milk. If you say, I don't drink tea, I want to drink milk, they'll bring you milk. We are being bribed. And they were giving us book allowance. That was higher than fees. So you could get your book allowance, pay fees, and the rest go and buy clothes and everything else for yourself. And that's how we lived in those days. You were babied. You were a jewel, a rare piece of metal, being in the university in those days, public universities. No longer today. Today, it's all about hustlers. To find accommodation is difficult. You go to the students' accommodations today, you see the kinds of accommodation, you say, hey, what kind of accommodation is this? Today, food, ana kuja pachiwaya. Wow. You look at the lifestyle, you look at the fees that the students are paying. I mean, which parents would afford these kinds of fees? They are terribly exorbitant, very, very high. And yet, what we have just shown here, we need scientists, we need engineers, we need medical personnel, we need all manner and kinds of professionals and specialists around. And yet as a country, we can't put in the right investments into those. You look at the national budget, how much money we are putting into these other areas that don't make sense at all, versus the most important area of investment, education for our children. You could clap your hands for me on that one. I want to put a case here that is very, very important. That Malawi as a nation, we revisit our priorities. To me, priority number one is to put proper investment in the education system of our nation. That should be priority number one. And if it means putting all our money in one budget line and get it right, then we must do that. Put in education, stop gallivanting. Stop all these luxuries. Stop all these purchases of unnecessary vehicles and so forth. Let's put our money where it matters the most. Invest in our children for a better tomorrow. Look, even if it was my house, my home, if I have a serious challenge, I would say, let me sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. I would say, I will not do these other things. I will focus on investing to get my own house, to get my children in school, to get a business running, so that I can have better income tomorrow to do everything else that I would want. As a nation, time has come, and we should have done this a long time ago, to invest in our children, because once we invest in them, we are assured of a better tomorrow as a nation. But if we continue with what we are doing, then we will continue to have 70% of people that have no education whatsoever. We will continue to have a situation where we have no people that are working out there, that have no non-skill expertise to contribute to economic development. And therefore the whole demographic dividend agenda, there's no way we can see it. Actually, we all know in our villages that when you have someone that looks like he has a little bit some money in the village or lives in town, and when he comes in the village, all decisions and everything else are around that person. Everyone else is simply begging and waiting for that person for us to change that, where only one person is being dependent by the whole clan and the village. What if tomorrow we have everybody else being independent on themselves and there's no one else to assist? That is the future Malawi should look for, and not the current situation where the dependence ratio is too high, where we can't achieve and see demographic dividend. So to me, when you look at that whole population below 25 that are dependent, the right thing for the nation is to invest in our primary education. Let's sort out our primary schools in terms of infrastructure, teaching and learning materials, getting the right teachers in place, ensuring that there's access and quality education for every Malawian child. And that as they pass their standard 8, 100% as they come from primary school, we should have the right infrastructure of schools, the right teachers in place, materials in secondary schools. Everyone else moves as a block to secondary school. And as they move from secondary to the university, we should have sufficient universities around. that can absorb everyone that passes MCE, so that everybody ends with the proper skill that they so desire in their life. If they want to be aerospace dynamic, they should get that. If they have to be economists, they should be that. If whatever they want to be, they must be whatever they want to be. That is the future that Malawi needs. That shall help us attain demographic dividends. I should have clapped hands for that one. And that all that requires the right investments in education. And that's what I submit and challenge you with. The second area on the role of the youth, after they have done the challenges in university and so forth, the next area is for them to contribute to the labor force in Malawi. Be part of that group that economically contributes to the development of Malawi. Today, it's another sad story for the rest of us here, except me and the DVC and the academic staff. Because at the time that I was graduating like you, do I have finalists around? Wow, my colleagues, when I was in my final year, I had 5 jobs waiting for me. 5 jobs. It was an issue of choice. Where do I want to go? Should I go to the bank? Should I go to government? Should I go to an NGO? Should I go to a donor agency? I had 5 jobs to choose from. I had the luxury of sniffing. How much are you giving me? No, I don't want. How much are you giving me? To sniff around all of them and choose the best job that I could get. I had that luxury. But it's no longer the case today. Our youth today don't have that kind of luxury because our economy has been shrinking. You see, I was speaking to colleagues in Mubas about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was saying, we have a serious problem in Malawi because we are solely dependent on tobacco. And you know, with all these anti-smoking lobbies, tobacco is a dying industry. 200 years ago, the lifestyle revolved around a pipe and a cigar. People of affluent society, they would have those big cigars 200 years ago in Europe. And a certain guy used it like you, so that people enjoy their cigars. And they put in tobacco in those cigars. And as they were doing their cigars and pipes, they had a cup of coffee and tea drinking. So that was the lifestyle of the affluent, Mayo and Haimeneoyo. And therefore, they developed a business model who go to Malawi, grow tea, grow coffee, grow business case available to them. And the farmers that helps us to grow these things, we shall give them nsima, maize. So we'll grow maize for them to work in our farms. We'll grow tea, sugar, and tobacco and export to the affluent societies in Europe. And that was the business model that made sense that time. Colleagues, 200 years down the line, we are still dependent on a business model of Maremu, who died over 100-something years ago. They saw a business case that time. It's no longer a business case today. Because long time ago, the pipes were thrown away. The cigars were thrown away. They are no longer taking tea and coffee as they used to do because of health concerns all around. But Malawians, we are permanently glued to a business idea of some youngsters 200 years ago. Something is seriously wrong in our heads. And we believe an economy that is dependent on maize, tobacco, sugar, and tea can survive the onslaught of the economic challenges of today. It is practically impossible. You are asking water to come from a rock. That's why today we are having challenges of exports and forex, challenges of jobs. How much can the maize industry hire you? The tobacco industry, the tea industry. That's why the economy has shrunk. Today, it's no longer about a business around commodities. Most economies that depend on commodities, whether it's food products, minerals, oil. There was a boom for those industries in the past. But today, business has moved on from commodities to the brain. What people are selling each other today are ideas, innovations. Everyone here has got a smartphone and with so many softwares and programs. Today, the business is on your phone. The richest guys you can talk about now, Mark Zuckerberg and others, they are into the technology space. But Malawians, we still think that let me send it tobacco, somebody's going to smoke tobacco there. And look at the biggest corporations and companies by their worthiness and value. Both on the London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, you will never find a commodity company on there. Even those that rely on oil and those that rely on minerals, their economies are on the downturn. It's those that are depending on selling ideas. Look, the business world today, you have to study society. I'm glad there are business students in here. You study society. This is society. What is it that I can give it? And they can like it for a value. That's all. You must study the society. And all these guys, the rich people in the world, they have studied what the society needs. And out of those things, they have devised what they should give the society in return for money. And in the process, these people have become terribly rich. Elon Musk, he studied that people need Twitter. People need this. Buffett, they started, people need this. So they have just studied us and decided this is how we can better and improve their life, their well-being. And supplied us what we need. And that is what those 200 years ago, the youth that started that this is what they want. They want cigars. They want tea. They want coffee. We shall supply them with that. It's no longer the case today. And even in Sima, I don't know why we have such an obsession over Sima. Look, our GDP is our gross domestic product. Our GDP, gross domestic product. What we have in our GDP are those four things: maize, tobacco, tea, sugar, and the rest are services sector. They transport fertilizer, transport tobacco. Banks, they give loans to tobacco farmers and they get money from there. All the other services sector have this bedrock of the economy: tea, sugar, tobacco, maize. Colleagues, what is maize? What are these? We should be embarrassed with ourselves. Our colleagues out there in Singapore, when you look at their structure, they will tell you technology is the biggest. We are doing all these things: vehicles, mobiles, programs, software, and shipping to the rest of the world. Clothes, everything else. But in our case, we are shipping tobacco leaf. Tobacco leaf, really? And that's the only thing that we have seen out there is the need. And the world is telling us, repurging us. We no longer want this. We keep saying, no, you need it, take it. So when you ask me about the job market, why we have a serious challenge of a job market is because us, me, the DVC, and those of us who went through the corridors of the universities of Malawi, all of them universities of Malawi, we have not helped this nation. We have failed you. We have failed you because we didn't think. Somebody told me that we are only using less than 10% of our brain power. And for many of us, school did not change us. We went in, memorized, and remained the same. We cannot independently think. We cannot independently apply what we are learning to bring out something that society can say, here we have an issue, a better thing, and we can pay for it. I want to challenge DMI students. Think outside the box. Push yourself. We want Elon Musk, the next one, to come from Malawi. We need the next Buffett to come from Malawi. But that will require you to push yourself to think outside what everybody else is thinking. How can we have 2024, our GDP, and we stand up and claim in Parliament, oh, our economy is doing well, and yet you're talking of maize? Really? So, the job market has been shrinking since my days. And for those of us who benefited from a good job market, we have not given back to society by creating jobs for the young ones as they graduate from their universities. That's why today you find a lot of talk, entrepreneurship, to push the blame on you. That's wrong. But in any case, let's think outside the box and be a better Malawi for tomorrow. And that's what I want to challenge you with. That the youth can only ensure that we have demographic dividends, if after going through your academic education, you'll be able to come to the other side and make a real difference to this nation and bring the impact that it needs. And therefore, the third element is that of innovation and entrepreneurship. We need people who can think, innovate, bring up ideas, things that the society are going to like, and they are going to pay value for that. And that's what's going to make you an entrepreneur and bring a lot of wealth to yourself, but also to Malawi as a nation. But as well, youth can also apply in the other areas. Let me jump to the next slide. What I'm presenting here are excuses that the students always give, the youth always give. These are excuses, but they are valid. And you are not to blame. This is still the DVC and myself. These are our problems. The ones I've explained. I mean, students today, you are brave to be in the university. Because courses and the programs in the university are tough. Are very, very tough. But life, in your case, is also tough. You haven't heard me. In our case, programs were tough the way they are with you. But at least we had only one thing which was tough for us. Just the academic life. But for you, life in the university is tough. In itself, it's tough. Before you think of academics, where you sleep, where you eat, the amount of fees you are paying, and everything around you is tough. I respect you. If the academic staff don't understand that, I think they need to be understanding you. you are facing two battles. A battle to live and a battle to succeed. Two things. I respect you. Well done. And all the best. Access is a serious challenge. Today there is enormous competition. My plea to government is to address the issue of access and quality. Really. Unemployment. To get a job, you have to fight and stay many, many years. I heard somebody who trained as a lawyer now is working as somebody mopping somewhere. And that's the reality in Malawi today. Very, very challenging. How do I contribute to the nation if I don't have a job? If I don't have a space into the educational system? Look at our home. I mean, it's a sad reality in Malawi, where you have 91% of the population jobless. It's bizarre. I mean, DVC, you and me, we should not live. It's bizarre. 75% poor. I mean, just imagine a nation where 75% of the people are poor. Every year you have hungry people. This year, half of the population are hungry. It's depressing. The more reason why, colleagues, I want to challenge you, let it end with us, not you. I want to challenge students of DMI. What we have done as your parents is bizarre. It can't go worse than that. But I want to give this challenge to you. Turn this nation around. This is not on. It's not a good story to be telling neighbors around. No, 91% are jobless. 75% are poor. Telling colleagues. And you look at our health care. The political that I said earlier on. Look. If the youth are in majority, 75% are below the age of 35. If you so decide next year that so Nganya uyu are going to be MPs, Nganya uyu are going to be president, it is your decision. And you decide, because you are in majority, whoever you decide to be president next year. All these things we complain, no, we may have put together a government that way. It's you. If we want a better government next year, it's you. Because you're in majority. If you vote in large numbers for a particular candidate, party, and the MP, that person is going to win. Hello? But there's too much voter apathy. Majority of you have resigned. All things are bad. I therefore don't want to go and vote. But you're not going to vote. Somebody is going to vote and make a decision for you. I want to put this square on you. Because you didn't vote, as long as you are 18 years and above, don't groan with the outcome of the election. Because if you had come out and voted, the person you to vote for, that is youth-centric, that is going to sort all these challenges, then that person is going to do it. But as long as we keep on putting in place mechanics that don't know how to sort out a car, let's forget about a car being sorted out. And let's not groan as well. No reason to groan, because we decided not to vote, not to put in the right person that should solve those challenges. Political participation is very, very important. By way of expressing your desire of who you think should govern us. If you are akulufe, ndifo chepa. Ndeife otalumirira tisanke muntu wina wake. As long as you are in large numbers and you come out and you vote for a candidate you want, that candidate is going to win. Next year you have a choice to either correct these things or not to correct. And you can be calling them one by one. Tell us, what are you going to do with the youth? Where you're not convinced, don't vote for them. Where you are convinced, go and vote for them. And they will carry the day, they will sort your problems out. To me, the youth in this nation are suffering. The kind of education system is not there. And even after struggling, there are no jobs for them. It's a sad reality that Malawi has. And that's why many of the students today, you find depression issues. Why not? They have to struggle with all these things around them. Issues of credit and capital, a serious challenge for young entrepreneurs who want to get into the entrepreneurship pathway and so forth. Technology, an issue, and indeed many other issues that are there. If I move on to the next slide, it continues with the challenges, especially for those in the remote rural areas of Malawi, when a child hasn't been picked, they'll simply say, "Amali kwatiwan, kwatiran," and some na kwana kwatiragalea. Be like them. HIV/AIDS, unfortunately, sometimes you have sex for grades, you have money for what, and you end up with the HIV/AIDS. And on all these other challenges, I'll leave with you the slide, the presentation, so you can go through it with the rest. There is an interesting case in Singapore where the government of Singapore decided to invest a lot of its money in its youth, right from primary, secondary, university education, and coming up with the purposive programs to help the youth as they graduate into various entrepreneurship activities. Today, Singapore is one of the richest countries because it had a youth-centric development agenda for the nation. And that's why I submit, this is what Malawi needed many, many years ago to avoid the crisis that we have now. And I hope it's not too late. We may want to emulate what Singapore did for us to get a better Malawi for our children. Closer to home, the next slide is showing the Rwandan case scenario. The Rwandan case scenario, next slide. The Rwandan case scenario, again, where Rwanda government said, we shall invest in our children, invest in their education all the way through, and ensure that we have programs that are running to give skills and specialization for the youth and turn them around. And indeed, the next slide is showing the success that Rwanda had in terms of economic growth and development because of its investments that it did. The next slide summarizes what kind of investment that the two countries performed and that ended in development of their nations. Malawi, in conclusion, has a youthful badge. The majority are the youth. But these are the youth that are struggling through and through. If our country were going to have a turning point and take the right investments for the youth, from primary education to university, giving them, and I would wish and I would propose that we should have bribed the youth the way some of us were bribed. Let them enjoy university life, secondary school life, primary school life, so that they can feel the need to give back to Mother Malawi. They can feel the burden to give back to Mother Malawi. But they can only feel that if we invest in the youth, and that they do that. I, for one, having gone through all those academic life things that they've talked about, having been in the public service in all those positions that they have said, I have a proposal of how we can turn Malawi around. And here is the documentary of what I think from Nsanje to Chitepa we need to do. And I will sell this to anyone who can sell this to anyone who can help us from next year turn around our situation. Our country simply needs total overhauling of our systems in education, in health, in the job market, and everything else. We simply need an overhauling of our systems. And this is what I'm suggesting in terms of the overhaul of our systems. Are we ready? And that will be about 18 minutes, and that will be the end of my presentation. Are we ready? And if we don't do it, sorry to say, we are doomed for another set of years.
Growth and development. This cuts across all sectors: health, education, manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, and infrastructure development, among others. Though rich with resources that would promote trade and boost economic activities, little has been done to transform Malawi. But not all is lost. The highly resourced Malawi and the people have hope in the economic development plan as proposed by one Dr. Dalitso Kabambe. For the development of Malawi, Dr. Dalitso Kabambe proposes several initiatives. He proposes the Shire Valley as the breadbasket for Malawi through the completion of the signature project, the Shire Valley Transformation Project. Dr. Kabambe proposes a massive ramping up of the cotton industry from plantation to ginning, spinning, cloth and textiles making, including oil production, massive ramping up of the beef industry, skin and hides, development of the Nsanje port and multimodal transport system of road, rail, airport and marine, massive ramping up of the tourism industry around Lengwe National Park, Majete and Waza Marsh, expansion of the sugar plantations, and construction of the Bangula University to focus on cotton research, livestock promotion, and water resources management. Fast-track replacement of beta tea and macadamia varieties and facilitated transfer of idle estate land, massive ramping up of small stocks and poultry industry that include excellent processing, packaging and marketing arrangements. Mwanza and Neno districts, here is what Dr. Kabambe is proposing. Massive expansion of plantations of beta varieties for wheat, pigeon peas, cotton, tangerines, lemons and oranges and their processing plants. Massive expansion of cattle farming and processing. Development of the Creek Range into a world-class tourism center of attraction. Completion of the Mpatamanga hydroelectric plant dam and develop the Kamwamba coal-fired plant. Develop a gold and rubies mine. Blantyre is well known as the commercial, banking and manufacturing hub of the nation. bringing back the lost glory to Blantyre through massive infrastructure development to improve connectivity and modernize the city. An industrial park at Matindi for manufacturing of different products ranging from light industries such as production of various electrical gadgets, handsets, cosmetics, furniture, plumbing, ceramics, textiles and apparels, to heavy industries such as engine and body cars. For young people, the development of youth parks. Blantyre Rural should focus on the beef and poultry industries as well as dhow processing. For Zomba and Machinga, establishing processing plants for rice, pigeon peas, mangoes, fish, tomatoes, tobacco and coffee, while at the same time boosting the beef industry coupled with massive transformation of tourism around Zomba Mountain. He proposes the development of the most talked about multimodal transport hub at Luonde to connect Malawi through rail, air, road and water to cut transportation costs of imports. Elsewhere in Balaga, develop the Kangankude mine and gold mine. Massive expansion of the cotton industry from production to ginning, spinning, textile and cloth making, expansion of the poultry industry and pigeon peas production and processing. In Dr. Kabambe's proposal, Mangochi and Cape Maclear should implement some signature projects that include an airport, holiday resort and golf course, teaching, hospital and residential properties, expansion of the fish cages and fish processing industry, develop the Maganjira Heavy Sands Minerals Mine and commence oil drilling in Lake Malawi, expand the Green Belt Initiative covering rice, sugarcane and other crops. Cheu and Dedza districts supply the country with Irish potatoes, tomatoes, cabbages and a variety of vegetables throughout the year. Investing into small-scale irrigation schemes and cooperatives for value addition of these products to reduce post-harvest losses. The Green Belt Initiative to be extended to cover the entire Bwanje Valley to grow cotton, maize, beans, groundnuts and many more with value addition factories in these places. Develop clinker and cement mining in the valley, Chumazulu to be a world-class ruby and sapphire mine. Dr. Kabambe also proposes improved tourism around Dedza Mountain and Chencherere Rock Art Heritage Site, a bypass road connecting Dedza to Salima through Mayani. Lilongwe, the capital city of Malawi. Lilongwe should develop the industrial park at Area 55, develop the graphite and rubies mine at Malingunde and Kasia, expand dam construction and irrigation for crops like maize, groundnuts, tobacco, beans and their processing, massive expansion of the poultry and dairy industries, massive reforestation of Zalanyama forest, and establish youth parks. Doa, Nshisi, Kasungu and Mchinji are the hub of commercial farming in Malawi. Dr. Kabambe acknowledges that agriculture is at the heart and soul of Malawi. He therefore proposes subsidizing commercial production and processing of tobacco, maize, beans, soybeans, groundnuts and vegetables. He also proposes the revitalization of Kasungu National Park for it to wear a new face with world-class infrastructure to attract tourists and mining of gold to be developed in Nshisi and Kasungu. With this proposal, Salima and Kota should benefit from an expanded Greenbelt irrigation initiative covering the entire stretch of the lake shore, enabling the growing of sugarcane, rice, cotton, maize, medicinal hemp, cassava, macadamia, bananas, and pigeon peas for processing. The fisheries industry should be promoted through cage farming and processing of fish products. For the development of northern Malawi, Dr. Dalitso Kabambe proposes several initiatives. Key among them is transforming Mzuzu City into a modern city with infrastructure processing subsector focusing on maize, beans, millet, groundnuts, soya, sorghum, potatoes, and macadamia production. These will be processed and value added. In Rumpi, massive expansion of tourism around Nyika involving construction of an airstrip, road network, 5-star international hotels and golf courses and allied services, fish industry through cage farming on the lake, oil drilling and expansion of Kaziwiziwi coal mines, expansion of tourism infrastructure around the lake, expansion of the Livingstonia University, and expansion of agricultural production and processing of bananas, cassava, and jatropha. Rumpi needs 2 complete roads, from Rumpi Boma to Livingstonia via Muhuju, all the way to Nyika, then Harire to Chitipa to connect to Zambia, Tanzania, and Burundi. In Katabe, expansion of the fish industry through cage farming, massive expansion of the tourism infrastructure around the lake, massive expansion of agriculture and agro-processing around rubber, macadamia, medicinal hemp, cassava, and bananas. For Karonga, the expansion of the fish industry through cage farming, oil drilling, expansion of tourism infrastructure around the lake and Songwe River, expansion of Kairekera mines, expansion of the rice and cotton industries and their processing, expansion of the livestock industry and their processing. In Chitipa, Dr. Kabambe proposes massive expansion of agriculture and agro-processing around maize, beans, groundnuts, bananas, macadamia, and coffee, specifically around Misuku Hills. These will be processed and value added to attract competitive prices both locally and on the international market. Expansion of the livestock industry can be a mellow atmosphere like no other, which can be turned into a world-class tourism destination for it to provide a unique proposition of breathtaking experiences, from world-class accommodation to exciting adventures, both on the majestic turquoise Lake of Stars and land full of ecotourism serene beauty, comprising rocky promontories, golden beaches, and huge baobab trees, state-of-the-art modern cruise ships to provide an apparel sailing experience over Lake Malawi, and which should also be accessed directly by air with an upgraded airport. For the country to achieve all these, Dr. Kabambe proposes the following 7-point plan. 1. Full-scale reorganization and restructuring of the entire public service to make it bottom-up, with Capitol Hill remaining with policy or standard setting and monitoring and enforcement functions only, while the cities, municipalities, and district councils focus on implementation of all economic and social programs. District-level structures need serious strengthening of manpower that include key players, to include cabinet ministers from the district responsible for the development of the district and sector ministry, members of parliament, councillors, district commissioners, and civil servants based in the district, NGOs, civil society, community, and religious leaders in the district, and council of prominent people from the districts. They will all work together as implementers and oversight agents in the district's work. District resource base needs serious revamping, and Dr. Kabambe proposes a package of no less than 100 billion kwacha for each district for a sustainably long period of time. This would massively improve district-level infrastructure of health, education, water, energy, and other economic and social amenities. Capitol Hill should only have resources for policy and monitoring activities. 2. Reposition bilateral and multilateral arrangements to maximize support from development partners. 3. Recalibrate the fiscal, monetary, and exchange rate policies with a view to bring down inflation to single digits within the shortest time possible, stabilize the exchange rate, grow official reserves to 6 to 9 months of import cover, bring down the bank rate to no more than 5% over the shortest time horizon, bring public debts to a range within the internationally acceptable thresholds to cut waste in the national budget with a view to release the borrowed liquidity back into the banking system to be used by the private sector. This will help the private sector grow the economy and create jobs for the youth. 4. Create and develop economic hubs for each district based on their comparative advantages and economic potentials. Industries will coalesce around 5 major areas, namely crop and livestock industries, minerals, gas and oil beneficiation industries, fisheries industry, tourism industry, manufacturing industry, and transport and other public sector work. In each industrial area, an anchor institution should be established, turbocharged to mobilize finances locally and internationally, comprising public and private investments to support districts develop the industries. Mining Development Corporation, MDC, should anchor minerals, gas and oil beneficiation industries, while Tourism Development Corporation, TDC, should anchor tourism industry projects. On the other hand, the Green Belt Initiative, GBI, should be reorganized to anchor crop and livestock industry. RAW of Madego should also get expanded to anchor the fisheries industry, while the Manufacturers Development Corporation should anchor the manufacturing industry. 5. On financing of the development projects, Dr. Kabambe proposes that apart from raising national budget resources to district councils to no less than 100 billion kwacha annually, Dr. Kabambe proposes further that the cut in domestic debt borrowing has the potential of releasing trillions of Malawi kwacha in the banking system to finance private sector investment projects. Dr. Kabambe also proposes the massive revamping and serious recapitalizations of development banks such as the Malawi Agricultural and Industrial Investment Corporation, MIC, and the Export Development Fund, EDF. Dr. Kabambe further suggests the revamping of Malawi Stock Exchange, MSE, and the alternative stock exchange market. Dr. Kabambe is also proposing better uses of trillions of Malawi kwacha in the pensions fund and tapping into other endowment funds locally and internationally. The role of high street banks, microfinance institutions, SACCOs, village banks, and banking konde all need to be visited to be positioned in such a way that they support district-based development initiatives. 6. Dr. Kabambe also proposes massive infrastructure developments focusing on catalytic sectors such as the energy sector to enable the country produce and generate enough energy to support industrialization and a multimodal transport system covering railway, marine,
tikulandireninso kuchoka kuno ku DMI kuno ku Mangochi komwe Dr. Dalitso Kabambe akuchititsa ndithu public lecture kuyankhula ndi ophunzira pa sukulu imeneyi ya DMI St. John Baptist University kuno ku Mangochi. Chomwe chachitika kumasanaku ndichonera kuti iwo ayankhula kwa ophunzirawa maka kulankhula kwawo public lecture yawo lero idakhazikika pa nkhani yokhudza achinyamata, kuthekera kwawo kwa achinyamata kusintha dziko lino komanso pomwe achinyamata alephera maka pa nkhaniso yokhudza mavuto mdziko muno kuti kodi achinyamata akanachita zotani ndipo alephera pati. Atatsiriza kulankhula pabwera ndithu kanema yemwe wangotsirizidwa kumene mwina ena omwe matimvera pa wireless pamaonetsedwa ndithu kanema amene akufotokoza kuti kodi dziko la Malawi lili ndi kuthekera kotani komanso dziko la Malawi lalephera pati komanso kodi chingachitike ndi chiyani kuti dziko la Malawi litukuke maka kudzera mu njira zosiyanasiyana, nthambi zosiyanasiyana za ulimi, za migodi, za mtengatenga ndi zina. Mukanema ameneyi amafotokozeramonso maka kuti kodi iwo akabambe atazati akhala mtsogoleri wa dziko lino ndi ziti zomwe angapange ku magawo angapo amene ukuonetsetsa kuti asintha dziko lino komanso kusintha chuma cha dziko lino. Ndiye kuno zikupitirirabe ndithu akatsiriza pamenepa pakuyembekezeka kuti pabwere kufunsa mafunso. Patankhulidwa zambiri akabambe atayankhula ophunzirawa ataonetsa kanemayu pakuyembekezeka kuti ophunzira pa sukulu imene ya DMI afunse mafunso, apatsidwe mpata woti afunse mafunso kwa Dr. Kabambe maka pa nkhani zosiyanasiyana zomwe walankhula komanso nkhani zina zomwe iwo awauza anyamatawa achinyamatawa ngati zinthu zomwe akuyenera kuchita kupita chitsogolo kuti athandizirepo kutukula dziko la Malawi. Ndiye apa ndicheze ndi mtsogoleri wa ophunzira pa sukulu imeneyi, president of the student union pano pa DMI. Mutikumbutsanso dzina lake.
Dzina langa ndine Clement Lisimba, president wa student union wa DMI.
Alankhula Kabambe akuonetsaniso kanema. ungafotokoze zitu watolapo chani apa somwe ayankhula Dr. Kabambe lero kwa ophunzira apano pa DMI?
Zikomo kwambiri. Zomwe zachitika leroli ndi zinthu mtengo wapatali kwambiri. Chifukwa chonena kuti chinthu chamba chimene ndatola mu tsiku la lero ndina kuti moyo wathu ngati achinyamata ngakhale tonse at national at large, our life is based on our decisions and the choices that we make. Kutanthauza kunena kuti ngati leroli ningasankhe zona kuti ine ndifuna moyo wanga ukhale otero ovuteka chonchi tsogolo langa likhala choncho, komanso ngati ndingapange decide kunena kuti ineyo ndimene zakhalirazi moyo wanga ndipange chisankho chabwino ndisintha, and that moment ndikangosintha chiganizo moyo wanga ukhala uchita bwino. And you see zikupezeka zonena kuti ambiri mwa ifeyo tingoyankhula kutere komano have we made the right decision? Have we made the right choice? Kunena kuti ni moyo wanga amene wayendera, moyo wanga wayenda for just zisankho zimene nachita apa kapena ma decisions amene ndinapanga mu nthawi. Now it's the time that ndipange chiganizo chabwino. So you see, ukapanga chiganizo chabwino cha moyo wako umayenda malinga ndi structure imene wayisankha iweyo ichayo. Ambiri mwa ifeyo tili kusukulu kunoko kuti mutifunse kodi ukuzatani kunoko, mumva kuti ndabwera kuzapanga accounting, ndabwera kuzapanga social work, ndabwera kuzapanga computer. Komano deep down we don't have a purpose. Kuna kuti after this institution, after this school imene ukupanga here, as you are transiting into the industry, what are you preparing for? You see, so tapuzana kuti anthu tizakhala ndi chiganizo chayambirira. Two, chinthu ichi naso chimene chanipanga highlight kwambiri njonera kuna kuti ambiri mwa anthu amene timatha kukhala ndikuthekera kopita ku university, timakhala ndi linga lona kuti ndikupita ku university ndikapanga program yakuti and program imene ndikayipanga ineyo ndayipeza kale ntchito. You see, tikukhala ndi mentality imene ndayipeza kale ntchito, yet ku university kapena ku school ine simene tikupita kumene tikuti kamake extract information. We are going that to extract knowledge, meaning to say knowledge imene tayipanga extract ku university for each and every learning institution we need to exercise on the ground, we need to implement it. Mugwirizanane kunena kuti ambiri amene takhazo taenda ma university osiyana zomwe tili nazo mutu ndi theory yokha, we don't have the practical yona kuti let us exercise it. Ndithu madam
zikomo kwambiri akulankhulapo ndithu pamenepo president wa student union yapa sukulu ino. Tathokoza chomwene apitirizani ndithu kumvera, tikuona kuti Akabambe so afika kutsogoloko akufuna ndithu apitirire ndi program yonse yapa malo ano. Mukhale mukufunsa mafunso ophunzira kwa Dr. Kabambe apa zomwe zalankhulidwa zomwe zaonetsedwa mkanema. Ndiye bwanji mosataya nthawi tonse tibwerere kutsogoloko timve kuti mwambo umene upitirire motani
of all life in Malawi, because they are in majority. But for them to achieve that, do that, it requires a holistic and an overhaul approach to everything that we know as in Malawi. And therefore, this is putting into perspective precisely that. I'll end by saying when I graduated, like some of you be graduating shortly, and started work a year or two later when I was going to do my master's degree at Imperial College London, University of London. That was my first time as a Malawian to land in London. I was blown with what I saw. And I cursed myself, why did I born a Malawian? It's simply because we haven't done the right things in this nation. And for 64 years, is it 67? Is it 60 years, right? 60 years since independence. Our story is as bad as it could get. When young ones out there are graduating, they have jobs. And their schools are much better than our schools. Their working life, they start work life, they are already sorting out the car and the housing on their own. Life is just at the fingertips. Colleagues, there must come a time when people must say enough is enough. And it's only those societies that have renounced themselves. I can no longer live like this. I want a different and better life. That have pushed for a better life and things have changed for them. Malawian youth, you are the majority. You can help this country take a different path and a better path for the nation. I leave you with that challenge. If this nation ought to change and has to change, it relies on you, the youth. You have to make up a better Malawi for other youths who are coming behind you. If we have failed you, and some of us, our time is gone, but we rely on this generation to take the right choices and decisions to turn around our country. It's season. We cannot continue to live and be like this. I rest my case, and I thank you so much for your kind attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Kabambe giving us insights on transforming mindsets by empowering us as Malawian youths towards economic development. A very big hand for him, please. Believe you me, he has challenged us as youths. It is time for us now to enter into discussions, pose some questions that are challenging to him so that he responds as we learn from him a number of issues related to economic development. I will be taking a set of questions. He responds, then I will take another. He responds, we'll go in that order. So the floor is open for questions, suggestions, comments, so that we hear from him more, probe from him, so that we understand better what economic development is all about. The floor is open.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Doctor. To begin with, I would like to really appreciate on your topic, which you presented as a third topic, on the roles and potential of youth development. Indeed, you have highlighted to us about education and skills development, labor force participation, advocacy and leadership, to mention a few. Based on your background, Doctor, I have this question. In your experience as the governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi, what key macroeconomic policies or reforms could be implemented to create a more favorable economic environment for youth entrepreneurship and employment? I rest my case.
Okay, I'm Hastings Mone from year 3 here at DMI student. My question is, how can mindset transformation be achieved among the youth to foster a culture of innovations and entrepreneurship? Okay. How can mindset transformation be achieved among the youth to foster a culture of innovations and entrepreneurship? And the second one is, how can educational institutions in Malawi be better prepare youth for entrepreneurship opportunities? Thank you.
All right, that's our first set of questions. Permit me to let Dr. Dalitso Kabambe to tackle those questions. Thereafter, I will take another set.
Thank you so much for those questions. You didn't tell me your name, so I will just proceed to answer the first question that you posed. Key macroeconomic changes that need to be done in our country in order to have a better macroeconomic environment where the youth are thriving in terms of entrepreneurship, but also in terms of that the economy is thriving and that is creating employment for its jobs. I think if you watched the documentary, which I can ask, it should be shared again. On point number 3, it is a very, very important point. What has gone wrong in Malawi now? It's a set of wrong economic policies. Every single economy, there are 3 main anchors, pillars that anchor any economy. The first anchor is that of a fiscal anchor. A fiscal anchor, it's a pillar which is really the national budget. It's all about how much is the economy able to generate, how much is the government able to extract from what is generating, and how much is it able to use in the economy. That's the pillar on the fiscal front. But I think what we have been doing now is that we have been living beyond our means. It's like a house where you are earning 100,000 kwacha. You have 10 million kwacha katapira, and you want to be spending 1 million kwacha every month. That kind of house is going to collapse along the way. Because you're only earning 100,000 kwacha. You already have katapira 10 million kwacha. You want to be consuming 1 million kwacha worth of things every month. It means you are borrowing 900,000 kwacha every month. So no matter how many months passes, you are going to collapse and die. Compared to a household where you are earning 100,000 kwacha, you have katapira 10 million kwacha, and you are saying, I'm going to spend 50,000 kwacha, use 25,000 kwacha to cut back on my katapira debt, and use another 25,000 kwacha to start a small business, to do some entrepreneurship. This house, given 10 months, you would see it's katapira going down, the business is growing, and the income growing, and their life getting better. That is what a normal household you would expect. That is what you expect in a normal economy. But we have an economy where MRI is collecting 2.4 trillion, like in this case, this year's budget. We are spending 5.8 trillion, and every single year we've been borrowing a trillion, close to a trillion. This year, 1.3 trillion. Regardless of the prayers that you can have, regardless of anything that you can do, the dancing you can do, you not get anywhere. You are going to collapse. And all we are seeing now are consequences of our own actions. And sadly, I've always said this, sadly, in the case of Malawi, especially for government, when the government borrows excessively like that, Our banking system, the totality of it, savings and deposits only account 1 trillion Mangochi in a year. If you go in and borrow that 1 trillion, it means you have borrowed out all that money. You have crowded out the private sector. So the private sector has no money to borrow, and therefore they cannot expand their businesses, they cannot run their businesses, they cannot grow their businesses, and the consequences, the private sector don't produce. They don't hire new staff. So you have paralyzed the private sector, your GDP goes down, no employment. These are the consequences of the fiscal decisions that you have taken as a country. So when you ask me, what are the key macroeconomic policy decisions that needs to be changed, reforms? This is the number one and most important policy reform that needs to be done. And sadly for my government, the bulk of which expenditures goes towards imported items. Government officials, the president traveling, air tickets and allowances abroad. They buy laptops and computers. When they hire people, they have to buy them vehicles. I mean, imagine from 2020 to 2020 and now, the amount of fuel the country is using is about 60 million liters, $60 million a month, up from $20 million a month. It's purely because so many people have been hired, and so many cars have been bought, and there's a lot of traveling that is going on with government services. But all that is imported volume of consumption, meaning that you have run down your foreign exchange reserves by buying imported items. So that's what the fiscal anchor would do. And for me, if you ask me, what is the poison that is destroying our economy? It is the fiscal cancer, the fiscal anchor. Because this house, I've given you an example. I mean, if you get only 100,000 and you are spending 1 million every month, you have 10 million caterpillar. No matter whatever happens, you are in trouble. And the problems will keep piling on you. And that's what I've done to this nation. The second anchor reform that needs to be done is monetary. Monetary policy needs to be changed. Look, I hope business students here, they do study economics. You have economics as one of your programs. You cannot have an interest rate of a country lower than inflation. And I always say you are mad. Reason being, interest rate or a policy rate, it is the interest rate of the country. It is a reward for investment. Now, if you have a reward for investment that is lower than inflation, inflation is how your value is eroding away. Now, inflation is at 33%. It means your value in the economy, everything is losing value by 33%. You are rewarding by 25%. You are crazy. What it means, anyone with money in the bank, if you keep your money in the bank for 1 year, that money would have lost value by 33%. The interest is tied to the policy rate. So your interest cannot be higher than the policy rate. So it means that your interest on that money has gone down, and yet the money has lost value a lot. Now, this is a policy, a mandatory policy decision. You people, how can you do that? And that's why with the Brian Banda of that interview, I was saying, the Bank of England committee, mandatory policy committee, they were having a hard time to reduce mandatory policy from 5.2%, 5.25% to 5% when inflation is 2%. They are struggling. And it was a divided decision. They can't reduce. Here in Malawi, we can have policy rate at 26% and inflation at 33% and see if this has been normal. That's crazy. And then the third part, the third key reform is that of exchange rate reform. I mean, look at our exchange rate. We are pegging it at 1,700 when parallel rate is at 2,600. Again, that's bizarre. What you are doing is you are penalizing all your exporters. And I hope maybe this is also an exam, one can get an exam in economics on the exchange rate. I mean, how does it work? You have exported $100 million of tobacco. If that money comes through the banking system, you're going to get 170 billion at 1,700 kwacha to $1. If that tobacco money comes through the parallel, you are going to get 270 billion kwacha at 2,700 kwacha to $1. You have lost 100 billion kwacha just by that policy decision. It means you are penalizing your exporters. Every exporter is being penalized in Malawi. And yet you want Forex. How can you do that? Insane. Insane. So you have insanity in the exchange rate, insanity in the policy rate, insanity in the fiscal anchor. There is no way under the sun that economy can be better. And I bet you. It's not rocket science. You don't have to have a master's or a PhD or a degree in economics to understand this is wrong. And how was an if never seeker? So the policy things that you want to change. Day one, if a new government comes in, day one, change the monetary policy stance, change the fiscal anchor, change the exchange rate anchor. Within 18 months, the economy will have stabilized. It will be an economy of low inflation in a single digit, an economy with a stable currency, an economy where interest rates have come down, an economy where reserves, you are no longer fighting shortages of dollars in the market. You have excess and abundance forex in the market. You would have a macroeconomic environment that is conducive to growth. All that money that we are wiping out and crowding in the private sector, all that money will be available to the private sector. And once that money is available, the private sector is going to go after that money. And they are going to start expanding their businesses. They are going to start hiring more people because they need to produce more output. The industry will be thriving, better interest rates. And if you bring back all that debt, our domestic debt now is about 7 trillion. If you pay back all that money to the banking system, our banking system would have 7 trillion Malawi kwacha. All this I was showing here, piece of cake. You would just do overnight. Within 5 years, you're going to transform the country to be what we have just shown you. So if you ask me, what are the things that could help create employment, is exactly that. In terms of entrepreneurship, once the interest rates are going down, the banks have all this money, they'll be hunting for everyone, Jim and Jack and John, to give that money. The youth are going to lay a hand on a credit capital that is of low interest rate. They can be supported and be able to develop their businesses and innovations and so forth. So to me, these are the three major macroeconomic policy decisions that needs to be reformed and changed. The fourth element is the hard job of reorganizing the systems. Getting everything else right. Sorting that's the hard part. Because this one, you do one day in office. The rest, you are going to now work on them to ensure that you develop the necessary infrastructure in energy, in transport, ICT, necessary systems in place, so that any business anyone is doing is able to grow them and get better value for their sweat. But equally too, I've talked about the reforms in the banking sector. We only have high street banks. You need development banks, those that can lend you money for longer duration and at lower interest. Them too, you need to have them in place, and you shall be able to sort out the needs of the youth in the economy. In terms of mindset change among the youth, I think that's the role of education. The role of education really is to impart knowledge. Equip young ones with knowledge, skills, and expertise. That's what's going to bring change of the mindset. We all grow up with a particular mindset. But as we get more and gather more knowledge, as we begin to challenge certain establishments, at that point it's when that knowledge is beginning to change us. And of course there are those that would get the knowledge and they want to remain the same. What I'm simply challenging you is, after getting the knowledge, let the knowledge change you. Let the knowledge transform you. Many of us, the Honorable DVC and myself, the knowledge, as I said, we may have just gained it for purposes of passing an exam. So regurgitating in, regurgitating out an exam, there we go, the same. But for the youth of today, I'm challenging, we need to look at it differently. Let's apply the knowledge that we get and challenge things that we encounter in life and bring a positive change to the society around us. Let me stop there for the 3 questions. Thank you so much.
Tiyamikire kwambiri chifukwa cha mayankho ogwira mtima titauseweza mchichewa twati titasoseweza mchichewa kuti enaso amene akutitsatira kunja uko nawonso amve nawo. Ndinaona dzanja limodzi apa, ndikatero nditengaso dzanja limodzi mbali ya uko.
My name is Douglas Nya, a BPA student. My first question is for many young youth nowadays. What should we choose between passion and money? First. The second question is, as youth who would love to start a business. The first question? Okay. My first question was, what should we choose between passion and money? The second question, as a youth who would love to start business in this hard economy, which way should we go for between debt and equity? Thank you.
My question is, how long does it take for a leader to accomplish all those visions you have demonstrated to us? Because that I'm asking this question, I want to let you know that suppose a leader has stopped treating the corruption with kid growth. How long can this happen?
Hello, my name is Juma Ibrahim. First of all, I want to thank DMY for organizing this remarkable event. And second of all, I want to thank our guest, Dr. Kabambe, for giving us this kind of opportunity to gain knowledge from you, sir. When I heard that you were coming, I prepared 2 special questions for you, sir. The first question is, in your experience, what are some effective strategies that us, as the youth and young entrepreneurs at DMY, are supposed to use to protect our little finances and our little small investments in a volatile economic environment like our own country, Malawi, which is marked by frequent devaluations? The second question is, considering your vast experience, which is in economics, finance, and now in politics, what key lessons have you learned that you believe are vital for us, the youth and young entrepreneurs at DMY, to understand and apply as we navigate our own path to economic empowerment and leadership in Malawi? Thank you, sir.
Titoleko sofu solina limozi, tikatero tiapatse mwayi kuti ayankhe. Titoleko so limozi, ndaona dzanja la mtsikana yapa, tipereke pamenepo.
My name is Caroline Bingwan. One of the reasons our currency has been devaluated is because you want to improve the economic conditions. So how does devaluation improve our economy?
Mwina tilekezekaye pamenepo, atiyankhe, then tipitirize. So over to you, Dr. Kabambe. If you're ready, that is, or we should take another set. Aha.
Thank you so much for those questions. The first one, the issue of mindset, passion, and the mind. I think which one would we go for? Both. We need both. Something where you have passion in. Chimene amanduza ndize kamba koso chichewa for purposes of our viewers outside this room. Passion. Chimene muntu machikumba ndi zimene ukuganiza in the mind for mindset change and so forth. I think you need both. You need both because passion helps you to drive the other agenda. That's how I would put it. More Ghana debt and equity. Which one do we go for? Amene mwapanga ko study the industrial revolution ku US. Mene anatukukira US kuti apange develop my industries onse aja atukuke. The route they used inali ya equity. Inali ya equity. Yama stake, yama shares, yama stock, ma bonds, ma bulls. That's how they develop their bulls market. Kutino, amena lindi idea. Ma company akula onse aja ku US. China panga nduka panga list on the stock market. Akapanga list on the stock market, ndiye mabweretsa and when odzakhala odzagula ma shares as partners in the business. Ndiye anthu akamagula ma shares ma company muja, it means company ikupeza ndalama zambiri, a lot of equity, chifukwa anthu akudzagula ma shares mu company muja. Ndiye chifukwa anthu akudzangogula ma shares, company linzi ndalama zambiri mbiri, ndi chifukwa chake ma company ambiri aja, literally ma company akulu wonse ku America anapanga grow out of the New York Stock Exchange. Mukaiona industrial revolution ya ku America, pathway yake yonse 100% inali through the stock market. Any business that was worth it inapanga register pa stock market, and it was able to get all the equity that it needed to do their business and expand. Kaya ndaja opanga magali moto, kaya ndo opanga ma supermarkets, ma company onse kanda Coca-Cola, ma company onse ku US madziwa aja. Onse ndrama zawo they got them through equity on the stock. All mukamamva kuti ma billionaires aku America. Ma billionaires aja, what they have are shares in businesses. That's how they have grown and developed their industries. When I was governor of the bank, I made it a point in the push the Malawian industry to raise their capital on the stock market so that they can become buoyant and grow big. What I was shocked about is kuti ma business ambiri achi Malawi nganthumba. Mandiva? Ma business ambiri achi Malawi nganthumba. Alibe financial audited accounts. Ma business ake ndiya me, mine, I, bas. Amundu ndi banja lake. Managing director mwina bambo. Financial controller mai. Mwana kandi chani mene momo. Alibe proper governance structures imeti maizodi matamene wapuzira administration. Kuti mukhale ndi oversight board. Yoti kupeleka oversight the management of the company. There's a separation. of duties. Makampani zambiri achimalawi mulibemo zimenezo. Amangokhala basi makampani olemera koma munthu ndaka zache. Ndiye anthu abweretsa bwanji mashares awo. How would you list that business on the stock market? It is always difficult. Koma where you have properly audited accounts, you have separation of responsibilities. The company panga run bwino with proper governance systems in place. That company can register on the stock market, and once it does that, it can raise easily cheap capital, which is through equity. Equity is cheap capital. Komanso, the beauty with equity, although the company is just getting cheap equity on the stock market, iweyo panga invest iwe, I may also answer the next question. In a turmoil economic environment, what did you do? Chifwanda nenakale kwa mbiraka jona kuti aliyense amene akusunga ndalama ku banki ngopenga ndanenakale kwa misala. Chifwanda kuti ukusunga ndalama chikamatha chaka ndalama zija they will lose value by 33%, and you be only rewarded by 10%. Mutu wako suku gwira makasunga ndalama ku banki. Ndi I wouldn't encourage anyone else. Ngati ndalama zimene ziyochita tipatseni ife tuthandizeni kusamalireni. But the other vehicle you can do is that of buying treasury bills. Reserve Bank always offers treasury bills for you to protect your money. But make your calculations right. Look what the interest rate on the treasury bills. What interest rate again ikulu banji? Is it able to account for inflation? If it is not able to account for inflation, don't dare. The current rates that treasury bills don't account for inflation. So aliyense anakula material bills apa material notes Reserve Bank ngopenga. Chifukwa ndalama zija kwangotaya. The value you could seek with inflation, what you are getting is nothing. It doesn't account for inflation. The next step ndema shares. Manena aja. Ubwino wa shares, most businesses ndonena kuti their value keep going up in my businesses. I have a story of someone else. Mene Airtel amaipanga IPO yake yambirira. This guy is a Malawian, and anakabwereka 1 billion kwacha. Kubwereka tu kuchibwereka banki kwa shares Airtel Malawi. Atapanga pampu shares mene mujamo. Price yoyambirira ali 12 kwacha, kana mukumbukira 12 kwacha per share. Mene matha mwezi mashares yafika 30 chakuti. The guy anangogula mashares aja pomatha mwezi mashares yankwagulitsa. He made 2 billion within 1 month. Kungogula bwereka ndalama 1 billion kugula mashares kuwagulitsa after mwezi wapanga mashares aja akwera in value to 3 billion wagulitsa wapanga profit ya 2 billion wali meja kabweza kumena na bwereka kuti. Machinjera matauni. Anabwera zakhala billionaire overnight. Ndiye mukandifunsa kuti kodi mmene dzavutiramu kwacha ikungodzigwera daily ndipo kwacha sinati. Because you have a huge misalignment. Misalignment ija mukazango iona. Ndikanakhala wa weather. Onena za weather. Kuti weather ili bwanji. Ndikanama kuuza na weather siri bwino kuti mitambo mvula igwa ikamakwana masana. Misalignment ija ndiyo ngokuuzani kuti kumene tikulowera kwacha igwa ndipo igwa zenizeni. Ndiyo uzikasunga ndalama ukuza kuti kwacha igwa kutsogoloko. Mutu akugwira. Ndiye zimene ndina kuti you can buy shares amene amapanga grow in value. You can buy properties, real estate. Real estate can also protect your money. You can also invest in businesses that you know. Chifukwa chonani mabusiness ambiri so akulu apansi. Nangasi anthu disposable income ikutsika. Ma cost of production adakali okwerabe. Mabusiness ambiri apotera. Chifukwa sangathe pesa ma customer luka ni buy them. Ndi ambiri ali mavuto ma businesses. Ndiye iweyo ngati uli ndalama uone kuti ndichina nayo bwanji ndalamayi to cushion myself from both inflation but also exchange rate movements. Koma zona zake nzakona kuti everyone is sinking. As the economy is sinking, everybody sinks. The clever ones, ajina ife, ndeti maona watu, ine sisunga ndama kubanki, singula ma treasure bills, ndiyo nakoziro wa isana ndama zanga. Kuri ine ndama zanga should be protected. But when a country is implementing wrong fiscal monetary exchange rate policies, rarely mapeza muntu wapulumuka, nchifake lero aliyensa akulira. Whether you are a producer, whether you are a consumer, whether you are a corporate, whether you are whatever it is, aliyense ni mayo. Because we are in such an economic turmoil that is orchestrated by wrong economic policies of the nation. How will it take to implement all these things? I can guarantee you, kuti ukayamba kuchita zabwino, immediate benefits you start to see them, and over time things improve. Komo ndanena lije loti likuvutika lilinzi zakatapira pano pa zakatapira zathu akuti zili 15 trillion alesa akamayenda akwenda ndi chingongole cha boma cha 700,000 pamutu pake zimeze muzabwezeso ndanyamata muli apano ife tizakhatira muzabweza ndi inuyo mbuyo muno okoma ukakhala situation ngati manager, you have no choice. You have to start improving your situation. Uyambe kukonza. Ndizija pang'ono, ndiyambe bweza ngongole, ndiyambe kutere. Sikuti zonsezo muzichita overnight. Koma kuti zinthu zikayamba kusuntha pang'ono. Kenako you see light at the end of the tunnel. Izimene zonse zimafuna tiyambe kuziyenda. Ndichifake muchati kunena ndi interview na manena kuti I think banda imwe yoyambirira. Ndinkana kuti boma panopa lili ndi choice. Tisamale economy kapena tidigire kanthu ativotere tibwerere somboma tizambitsa konze bwino. Ndai zambiri mukangolowa amene mboma. Imakantha abwino kuti ma hard decisions mupange. Chifukwa exchange rate chamukonze, ndiyo exchange rate mukuidzea ngana izikhacha ma 2000 chakuti. Mtengo wa mafuta choti mukonze, mwina ukhale 3000 chakuti. Kuti mukonze monetary policy, mwina muyamba bwa ikweza kaye, ifika ku 40 chakuti percent. Komanso fiscal yo, it means kuti anthu ambiri mwa alemba pa useless people mwa alemba apa, mwa chotse. So, ndingati kuntenga patient kupita mu theater. Muntumbule munkonze musoke. Amamva kuwawa amene mujamo. Komano akabwerera ku ICU, HDU, kenaka ku general ward, amakachira patient uchi. So where we are now is a situation that muli ndi patient wadwalika kwambiri the Malawi economy, ndiye mungompatsa panado mu general ward. Iwe bamwa panado tidikire masankho kaya dutse. Bamwa panado afera kupanado imwe. Ndiye mavuto dakali nawo, chifukwa patient yafunika alowe mu theater akatumbulidwe, achotse fiscal cancer, exchange rate cancer, monetary policy cancer. Akazichotsa zima cancer zotupa zonsezi izi. Ndikumusoka bwino tachotsa zoyipazi kapita uzikachira. Akachira. Koma pano tangodzisunga zili mkatimu. Zidakatukusira. Nepa alibe mocha bwino chimene tingachiyembekeze between now and the next election. Because pano tili motukusira. Ndiye tukusiradi tililake tidakalira sitinatope. Strategies the youth idayo kwambiri, I would still push the authorities kuti apange create necessary environment for the youth. Zona zake nzona kuti it's not just the youth, it's the whole economy which is bleeding. Everybody is bleeding. The macroeconomic environment, it's so bad. Olokoti mukabwereke ngongole mpange business. The interest rates are just so high. Kodi kumene mukakungole ndrama ako ndikuti kodi business yanu ikagwira nsewu. Musana papanga chilichonse muyamba maganizira kaye interest as much as mwina 40% ibina kakubwerekereni. Mukapita ku awa anzathu awa mashako apanga zawo jeniza microfinance yo. Ndeni nyanyi amataka kuuza ya interest rate 9%. Iyo uko pay out 9%, pamela 9% per month. Ukaipanga times 12 months ndi 108%. Ukaipanga, how can you borrow at 9% per month? Mutu wako ugwira? What kind of business can you run? Ndiye anyamata, the youth of Malawi, and literally every business, it is struggling. Also the masewera. Chifuna kuti, as I said, and tuzimena akulima. Chifuna fertilizer, akuvuta mitengo ya kwera. And hambiri, they live subsistence farming. 80% of Malawians depend on farming, on subsistence. Akalima, zina aje, zina agulitsa. Nde chifuna kwera mtengo wa fertilizer, zolima zomakazo chepa. Sa ukwanitsa kuti aje, sa ukwanitsa agulitse zokwanira, akhale ndalama zokwanira. So when you go out there, disposable incomes have completely eroded. Amena agwira ntchito, inflation is much faster than the rise in their salaries. So they are being robbed every year by 30% of inflation. Pamene masala kwanjizira by 10%. It means their disposable income as well has completely contracted. Nde mulindando agwira ntchito, disposable income completely contracted. Mulinde alimi, disposable income completely contracted. Nde iwe ukupanga katundu wako ta akugule anthu amena ndamayo mayo olira okhaokha. It's terrible. Nde ukabwereke interest at very, very high interest rate. It's a serious challenge. So, and in Malawi, the only kinds of banks we have and credit are from high street banks and from microfinance institutions. We don't have what are called development banks, where you can borrow ndikubweza kwa nthawi ya Italy at low interest. Tilibe zimene zozo. Then mavuto koka, that's why point number 5 ija, ndimati we need to set up development banks that can offer relatively lower cost of capital. The Malawian youth, isi vuto loti mapanga create ndi inu ihai. Vuto lindaine nda DVC. Ndiye mutu wana zotichita kuti your situation should get better and improve. Then the last 2 questions, my key lessons. I think the key lesson here in kwambiri. Ndiona kuti in whatever you do, young men, young women, in whatever you do, fight for excellency. That is the key lesson to me. In whatever you do, fight for key excellency. Whatever happens, fight. Fight and be on the top all the time. With that, you're going to succeed. Be the best in it. That is the key lesson for me. Ndachita now my pamodzi nda DVC nadzapeza now my PhD at a young and tender age. I had my PhD at the age of 30. Ndachita now my, because of I think my hard working, I rose very, very fast. I was among the youngest PSs in the Malawi government at the young age. And probably also the youngest budget director ever at the time that I was budget director. And also I'm on record to be the youngest governor of the bank ever. That's the record that I set. I believe in work ethics. If you come a minute late, to me you're not my friend. Ngati quality ya product yako is not good enough, output yako, you're not my friend. I insist on high quality stuff. My learning lesson is kuti onse amene amalimbikira zinthu amapanga fight for the top all the time. Even in class, even in university, I was fighting for the dean's list all the time to be there, and nimapeza ma distinctions angawo all the way through to the PhD level. Kwina kosimaphunziraso ndi anthu akumayiko ina ku America, timaposa azungu onso nkumasiya mbuye ife kumakhapa mwamba anthu akuda tilipe. And finally, devaluation. This question of devaluation, look, it's not a good thing to devalue a currency. It's as bad as it can get. Kuma, hey, you are running very, very bad economic policies. If you devalue, all your consumers are in trouble. Malawi, we are an import-dependent country. It means you are sinking everybody. All the farmers, you are sinking them on the ground. Chifukwa fertilizer ukapanga devalue, fertilizer yo ntengo kwera. Ntengo kwera kwambiri. Ndeino ntengo nyumuse 100,000 kwacha. Akapanga devalue ya papa. Fertilizer afika 150,000 kwacha. Takanisa na ndoa kumunza kwanitsa. Komanso, menda konetseramu, it has so many angles. Alimi mukafinya, zopanga export zakuda zikapanga export at that rate ya kujeni ya kubank yola kuika. You are killing the chicken that lays the eggs. Devaluation is bad. Ndiye chofunikira kwambiri ndikuchiunika kodi devaluation kodi misalignment mavuta tobwera nawo chifukwa chani. Mukapita ku source, mukapeza ku source iko boma la tasa ndi fiscal mismanagement imene kupangitsa zonsezi. To me, what you need to do is sort out the mess in the fiscal. Sort out the source of the problem. Mukapanga sort out umene kujako, you will just have a stable macroeconomic environment. Actually, that's the purpose in the documentary. If we are going to do this, appreciate, because we would have been producing a lot and exporting a lot, Kwacha in itself could be regaining a lot of strength, because your balance of payment will now be in the right framework where you are exporting more, you are importing less. So you have more available dollars, excess dollars in the economy, and it's those that bring down your rate of exchange, or that improves your exchange rate. Actually, mukaone maiko ena amata kuitsitsa bwino ndrama yoija iretu mutapanga izizi for 5-10 years. Malawi kwacha mkhozadabwa kuti Malawi kwacha chayatsika tikumakamba za ujeni kwacha maybe to 50 kwacha to $1 or 100 kwacha to $1, something like that. But you need to turn around first the current account balance. How much are you exporting? How much are you importing? If you have excess dollars, then you have a situation where you can strengthen your currency and improve it. Let me stop there for those set of questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kabambe, for responding quite well to a number of questions that were posed. With time, I think tiregezera umenevo and mwaulemu ndikupempheni Dr. Kabambe to give a closing remark before we have the one who opened with a prayer to close. Your time, sir.
Doc, once again, thank you so much for giving us a chance to interact with the owners of the country, the people that it decides who runs this country. I know akadziko lino ndi awawa. Ndiye ndithokoze kwambiri kuti munatilola masanano to have this interaction. Ineyo, I was honored. Choice ya topic inali abwino. Yakuti kodi achinyamatawa, are they giving us demographic dividends? And in my conclusion, after my analysis, I'm saying no. Because although we have a youth badge, kumayambiriyo is dependent. Ikufunika ithandizidwe, ikhale ndi maskulu abwino, ikhale ndi skills abwino for them to effectively contribute to the national development. Kuma ife we have failed them. We haven't given them the right things, and they are struggling in a serious way. Some of them have fallen out of the way. My appeal to the authorities is to think about Malawi today and tomorrow, and that Malawi are the youth that we have here. I just hope we will do things differently for them. Whilst we failed them, we hope Kwatsalaku, with them, together, we can work out a better Malawi. We have enormous amount of resources. Dziko likoza tukwa mosavuta, but the craziness at Capitol Hill is all to blame. One would have wished we do something different. I look forward to a future where our youth reclaim their true position and live a life just like any youth in London, Washington, Singapore, and anywhere else they would live. I would wish to see them live that kind of life here in Malawi, not long time from now. I thank you so much for your listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kabambe. At this moment, permit me to hand over the mic to the organizers of this function, the president of the student organization body, to close with a remark. After that, we'll have a prayer, and then we'll dispense. The president.
Thank you so much, Master Simon. Thank you so much, our guests. We have been honored today. So as students, you have seen how much we need to improve. You see, most of us, we underestimate change. You understand that the greatest problem that we have is that many people are schooled, but then few are educated. This is why you find a person, he or she has attended a lot of schools, but that person is not educated. And you notice, we are aspiring into Siana. Even some of our parents, my events Siana. Koma you notice kuti munthu amene ojaye akuzomaganiza zomwe zanga invest at a retirement stage. So imagine a parent who is thinking of investment at a retirement age. Munthu amene ojaye kumana ndi stress kumene kujaku, what will happen? Rather than kuti apange makolo invest in some of us, we have my lecturers here who are equipping us each and every day. And these lecturers, they have access na kuti akhoza kuti thandiza kuita na anthu amene ali ndi my expertise, commercial experience in some areas that we need. And these interesting topics, they can come and impart us. Zilingati kunena kuti ambiri mwa ifeyo tikapeza kuthekera khandi capital mwina makolo apuma tigawira kena kake ndrama zimene zijazo, what do we do? Timaononga, timasangalala. Zimene zija zilingati kunena kuti ukupita kwa gola ukagula mbewu yachimanga khandi kanyani ndi mbewu imene ja ukuyiphika fonsima instead of planting it. So ambiri mwa ifeyo tidati kanga chepe kamene tingakhale nako khandi ku skulu kuno khanjani, let us initiate mu chinthu china yake ndipo zithandiza. And some of you have seen how we have struggled to come up with such event. We have benefited, we have been helped, and this is a kind of governance that I want to hear.
Umo ndimo tatsirizira kuno ku Mangochi ku DMI St John the Baptist University komwe Dr. Dalitso Kabambe omwe adali mkulu wa banki yaikulu mdziko muno Reserve Bank komanso omwe aonetsa chidwi kukapikisana nawo pa mpando wa president ya ku chipani cha UTM amayankhula ophunzira m'masukuluyi amaka zikuluzikulu zomwe zidatuluka mu public lecture yawo ndikuwalimbikitsa chinyamata kuwauza kuti pamene pali vuto ndipakuti maka amafotokoza kunena kuti achinyamata ambiri akamapita ku sukulu maka sukulu zawo kachenjede amapita ku sukulu kuja kuti akaloweze zinthu awerenge zinthu ndi cholinga choti akhoze mayeso koma sagwiritsa ntchito zomwe aphunzira ku sukuluko kuti zizathandize pa ntchito yothandizira kutukula dziko lawo. Adafotokozaponso kunena kuti achinyamata ambiri komanso kuti anthu ambiri mdziko muno 70% ya population ya dziko lino kuti ndi anthu oti sadapite ku sukulu, 30% ndoti pa anthu 10 ena aliwonse anthu atatu ndi amene amapezeka kuti ndi amene anapita ku sukulu nde amafotokozera achinyamata kuti chiwerengero chimenechi ndi chachikulu kwambiri nde achinyamata athandiziranso apanga contribute to mavuto omwe ngati dziko pakadali pano tikukumana nawo akuti achinyamata ali ndi mphamvu yoyika mtsogoleri ali ndi mphamvu yosintha zinthu koma achinyamata ambiri sakugwiritsa ntchito maphunziro ngati chida choti athandizire kusintha dziko lawo amayankhulaponso nkhani ya zomwe iwo akuona kuti angadzachite atati asankhidwa ndithu kukhala mtsogoleri wa dziko lino zimenezi zidaonetsedwa mu kanema kanema amene amafotokoza ndithu kuti ngati dziko pali magawo angapo amene tatayirira sitikutengerapo mwayi kuti titukule chuma cha dziko lino kudzera ku magawo amene umagawo ngati azaulimi azamigodi magawo ena ngati kuti mabizinesi akuti ngati dziko pa ntchito imene yazokopa alendo sitidachite sobwino akuti iwo boma lawo atati asankhidwa kukhala mtsogoleri wa dziko boma lawo lidzaunikire kuchita invest ku magawo amenewo kuonetsetsa kuti ngakhale kudera lina lilonse boma lina lilonse kukhale mkulu wa boma ngati nduna kumeneko kumayang'anira kuti ntchito zachitukuko zikuyenda bwanji afotokoza momwe adzatukulire ntchito za ulimi momwe adzatukulire ntchito za migodi ntchito zokopa alendo ntchito za mtengatenga nkufotokoza kwawo akuti dziko la Malawi lili ndi kuthekera ndithu kusintha zinthu momwe zikukhalira pakadali pano iwo achita blame pakadali pano ku Capitol Hill komanso mtsogoleri amene alipo pakadali pano Dr. Lazarus Chakwera kuti ndi amene athandizira kusonkhezera mavuto ochuluka amene dziko la Malawi likukumana nawo akufotokoza kuti ngati nkhani ya ngongole kupyola 15 trillion kwacha akuti ndi zinthu zoti zikanatha kupewedwa ngati mtsogoleri wa dziko lino komanso boma lake limayendetsa bwino chuma cha dziko nde iwowa afotokoza kuti kubwerapo pa mpando umenewu adzathandizire ndithu atali ndi ukadaulo makapa nkhani ya zachuma ati kubwerapo adzathandizire kusintha momwe chuma cha dziko lino chimayendera komanso adzathandizire kutukula ntchito za maphunziro ntchito za ulimi kuonetsetsa kuti ngati dziko tsopano tifike pa level ya maiko ena akunja amene pakadali pano akuchita bwino m'magawo osiyanasiyana nde iyi ndi public lecture mwina titha kunena kuti yachinayi yomwe akabambe achititsa tidaona anapita ku Catholic University anali kumubasa anali kunzuni palero afika kuno ku Mangochi kuti mwayi zikuoneka ngati mwina kampeni yawo akuchita target ma public lecture ngati njira imodzi yowakopera achinyamata amenewa akabambe mwacheza nawo achinyamata lero kwaunikira maka pa zomwe angachite kuti tikuchoka kuti ngati dziko pa nkhani ya mavuto pa zomwe angachite kuthandizira kuti kuthetsa mavuto amenewa komanso kuti kodi mavuto amenewa tachoka nawo kuti zimaonetsa kuti achinyamata ambiri anali ndi chidwi kumvetsera timaona pena apo ndi apo kuomba m'manja achinyamata mukamayankhula mudakoza bwanji uthenga umenewu kuti uzachite relate ndi achinyamata awa makapa moyo umene
nziko muno ineyo kwa ine nkuna kwanga kuti tipindule kwambiri kwa ana athu mtsogolo muno ana athuwa tikanaonetsetsa kuti mabudget mwathu tapanga prioritize education. Ku education iko taika ndalama zambiri kusiyana nkuika ndalama madera osayenera kwenikweni. Alipo madera ambiri amene katha kuuza kafe mbudget mwathu taika ndalama madera osayenera. Tikanaziteka ndalama osezija ndikuzika ku maphunziro kuti ku school za primary kukhale zonse zofunikira mwana aliyense akhale ni mwayi ophunzira school yabwino. Akamamaliza primary mwana aliyense apeze malo ku secondary school. Ma secondary school zakhale okwanira zipangiso no zikhale zokwanira mwana aliyense amaliza secondary school apezeke ku university kumene konso khale zipangiso zokwanira malo ogona abwino zakudya zabwino monga manka pangira ife kale munji kuti ukapita ku university chiliyonse machipeza komanso atipatsa book allowance yoposa fees kuti mwana apita fees from book allowance moyo wabwino zimene zijazo zimene monga dziko timayenera tipange. And we cannot blame our young ones. They are suffering because if my decisions ameta katukupanga on the fiscus have been wrong. We need to prioritize education for our children because tikatero tikani masanti tsambiri ma engineers ambiri ma economists ambiri tikandi amalawi wonse opposite maonetsa papo chithunzi kuti lero lino 70% of Malawi they have no certificate whatsoever, and how many degrees and above in dziko muno it's only preparation. And now once the education system was thrown them out of the bus. Ndiye nchifanyike mati kupita chipata ndifuna munthu amene amadza kuchiza matenda antima heart conditions cardiologist ndziko tilibe not even a single cardiologist. Madera ambiri tilibe anthu amene aphunzira ukadalopa zinthu zofunikira zosiyana chifukwa chake kuti ifeyo sinapange invest in our children. If we to bend the corner to get things right for tomorrow, we need to seriously invest in our children in their education system so that we can better their lives.
Mwakambapo so nkhani yokhudza kusunga ndalama ku bank nkhani imene ndikufunsa chifukwa mudaira nkhulaponso pa times exclusive anthu ambiri adayankhulapo kuyankhapo kuti akabambe atitesa masunge ndalama ku bank iwo zawo amasunga kuti
Kathe ndimezililitu
ndalama zanu zili kuti mukamauza Malawi kuti ayi nuzanu musakaika ku bank ati nuzanu zili kuti.
I'm their financial advisor kwauza kuti my interest rate aku bank apanga reward for saving and for deposits. Kwa my interest rates aku bank aja they are pegged, they are determined by the policy rate. Nde policy rate mukapanga set policy rate ili below inflation. Inflation ndiye kuti mmene katundu akwerera mitengo pansika. Ndiye kuti ngati katundu akwera mitengo kwambiri kuposa mmene ku bank akupangirani reward for saving, iweyo ndikungokuuza kuti iweyo Kathe ngati ukusunga ndalama ku bank when you zaku bank zia interest rates nzochepa kwa mwina ndipita mwa treasury even pano ma treasury bills interest rate yake it's lower than inflation. So even if you would have bought a treasury bills you are still losing value. Ndalama it's a store value, currency is a store value, you are simply storing. Let's be honest, so whichever you do, you're going to lose money.
Pomaliza Kabambe, ku UTM zikuenda bwanje, pompano tinaona chithunzi chikuenda matsambanchezo ma aspirants nonse muli pamenepo, mtumbuka Galiati akambala ndinu nomwe mutajambulitsa pa chithunzi chimene zili bwanji kumeneko, koma mwina mukayankha funso limene ndimati mundiyankhe konso kunena kuti pamveka zambiri mutachita interview manager anthu akuti aya Kabambe mwina ali uku akugudwa uku munga kambepo zotani ena kuti mwina kuyenda mukuyendako mukugwira ntchito ena ake osati ku UTM munga nkhulepo zotani I used to UTM kapena mwagulu.
Kathe, I think kundale kumakha zitopotopo zopakana matope zaboza zambirimbiri. Propaganda yoti ineyo alipo akundipanga chani zimene zaboza zenizeni. Ndinasankha kulowa UTM. Ndinasa chifukwa mapanga interview ndi Brian on the same television. Kuna kuti UTM imalimbikitsa kukhalira pamodzi United. Kudana ndi vuto la tsankho limene khali kuti vuto nthawi yayitali. Komanso UTM ikupanga resonate well with my transformative agenda. Ikupanga advocate for transformation of the country from poverty to prosperity, from hunger situation to perpetual food secure nation, from corruption to a corrupt-free nation. Kuti dziko litukuke. The ideals and values of UTM. So UTM probably is the best party that one can go into. So ine nabwera chonse watunthu ndipo ndinokonda kuti ndine ku UTM. Mmene picture onena kuti tina mapena pake ndi azitsogolera tu. Ile ku UTM ndine munthu wamba. Ku DPP kujandali member wa National Governing Council yawo. Kuma ku UTM ndine munthu wamba. Mabwana anga ndine mwemana ne wodzi. Munthu wamba kuima ndi mabwana ake mmene nayimbira muja. Abwana anga ona Babatisha Kaliati. Secretary General watu abwananga Kampala komanso ndi mabwana angeto mina anatirandirira nimeti
mwachidule muti zili bwino
kwa basa anatirandirira bwino ndipo kuli chikondi chabwino tukhalirana limodzi komanso ndi constitution yokha ATM imene imatha kulola kuti even ordinary member like me oti sina Christian chipani akhoza kapanga nawo compete pampando naso kuchipagojeni ku convention imene bwaso kloko moti ndikapanga nawo compete pampando wa president munthu oti sina khali nthawi itali munthu oti ndilibe mpando wa ukulu kuchipaniko. That's how good UTM is. Ndi an inclusive party yololera wina aliyense yovomera wina aliyense yokhalitsa mwina aliyense ndiye kukhala kwabwino kwambiri. Komanso ma propaganda zina manena anthu zambiri zina zimangozimvera zammaluwa zosamveka zoduka mutu zopanda ene material source out of it.
Zikomo kwambiri tikufunaniza bwino zonse ndithu ndimo mwetachezera ndi akabambe mwina tingofunsa kosofunso limodzi kwa ukomatani malunga mkulu wa pasukulu ino kuti mudalandira mlendo uyu lero amene aliso aspirant akufuna akapikisane nawo ngati pampando wa president ku chipani cha UTM. Mwachidule mwayiona bwanji lecture komanso padali kanema yemwe adaonetsedwa kufotokoza zomwe wakuganiza kuti ngati Malawi kuchoka kuti mavuto atifikira pati komanso titani kuti tikonze kwambiri kanema machita focus on zomwe iwo akabambe akuona kuti ndi ma areas oti ngati dziko akonzedwe kuti titukule chuma cha dziko lino. Mwayiona bwanji lecture komanso zomwe zidaonetsedwa nkanema amene
poyambirira penipeni Kathe, university ni nsika wa my ideas. Ndipo mene kumakhalira kunsika kopezeka chilichonse chomwe chingathandize munthu ni menenso kumakhalira ku university. Choncho timatsegula chitseko kwa onse otibweretsera nzeru zomwe zinganenepetse maganizidwe anyamata asukulu. Kuti akamva zimenezo nkumaliza maphunziro awo pano asakadzidzimuke koma akupitako pokaona kuti zomwe sankayembekezera zili kumeneko chifukwa choti zimenezo zanenedwa kale. Ndeno ndiyankhe nofunso lenire. Lecture imeneyi yakhala lecture yapamwamba kwambiri ndipo yapherezera zomwe timafuna anyamata a skulu ata madziwa ndipo ata machita. Tinawalandira kuno ngati munthu yemwe ali katswiri pakalondolondo wa zachuma. Chifukwa phunziro la kalondolondo wa zachumalo timaphunzitsa kuno. Timaphunzitsa mwina theoretically iwo adzaonjezera zitsanzo zomveka zamene chuma machendetsera. Choncho anyamata athu omwe akuphunzira za bizinesi komanso omwe ali ndi chidwi kufuna kukuza malingaliro awo lero pofuna kunena zoona adya akhuta. Kuonjezera apo ifeyo kuno ku DMI tikufuna kukhala ngati mmene amakhalira ma university anzathu ku Oxford, ku Cambridge pomwe nthawi ndi nthawi amayitana anthu omwe achita zakupsa m'madera osiyanasiyana kuti adzayankhule kwa ana athu a sukulu, kuti ana athu a sukulu aja awatenga anthu amenewo ngati chida. Oti tsiku lineweyo kaso dzabwera kuno. Nawe sodzayankhule mmene umatiphanisira ndi mafunso. Kuti anyamatawa adzadziwe kunena kuti kodi utola nkhani osatengera mbali umakhala otani. Zimenezozo anyamata athu ndi asungwana athu ayeneka kuzidziwa. Kaya kupanga social work, kaya kupanga business, zinthu ngati zimenezo amayenereka kuzidziwa. Because intellectual growth has got to be done in its totality. Right? Akamati munthu waphunzira adzikhala munthu onena kuti athothera ndemanga potsamira ku mfundo zolozeka akamafotokoza zinthu.
Thokoza kwa basi zikomo kwambiri ndithu umo ndimonso tachezera ndi mkulu wa pasukulu pano a Benedicto Komata ni Malunga kufotokozeraponso kufunikira kokhala ndi munthu ngati Dr. Kabambe kubwera kudzalankhula kwa ophunzira pasukulu ino. Kudali ophunzira ochuluka ndithu mchipinda chimenechi enanso sadakwanitse kuti apeze nawo malo mkati mmenemu chifukwa chakuchuluka kwa ophunzira chipinda chidachepa, koma ophunzira ndithu adali mkati mukumvetsera zomwe adawabweretsera pano. Sadaone kuti kuno kuli kutentha kwambiri chifukwa ku Mangochi kukutentha, koma iwo adalibe ndithu mchipinda chimenechi mothithikana momwemo kumvetsera ndithu zomwe adawatengera kuti agawane nawo Dr. Kabambe amene ali former Reserve Bank Governor komanso presidential aspirant ku chipani chimenechi cha UTM. Ndiye kuchoka kuno ku Mangochi bwanji tisiyane pomwepo mdali ndi ine Kathe Maulidi nzanga pamakina Henry Chulu. Pitirizani kuonera kumvera Wireless Times.